Hey guys, thanks for joining us tonight. I wanted to record my thoughts. I thought that Councilwoman Sarah Cameron did a really good job of inviting all of citizens to understand both sides of where things are within our city and to be educated and to get everything out on the table as we try and understand the budget, but also to hold me as a city council member accountable, to hold each of us as the mayor or whatnot. And I wanted to give some backstory of kind of where I'm facing, because Sarah kind of talked about her first 6 months, and I'd like to talk about my first 6 months as well, and kind of where I feel like things need to be going. So, and first and foremost, I want to say that I feel like I was elected to, not that I would be a better negotiator, like I could go into the city council meeting and that I was smarter or had the best ideas and would go into the basement and cut a better deal, and that you guys could all trust me in whatever deal I got would be better. I actually feel like the reason why I ran or was elected was so that we could pull the conversations out of the basement and to follow government processes and to regain what I call like the public square. And I want you to know how passionate I am about the sacredness of our public square. There are few countries in this world and people that have the ability to petition their government and to go to such a sacred place of a gallery, whether it be a city, a county, or a state, to evaluate very strictly, very difficult as an elected official, and look at them and hear their tone and hear their integrity. And in running, I felt that many of the issues or problems that Vineyard faced, whatever deal we cut or whatever tax rate it is or whatever budget, that things needed to be done in an open meeting. And I'd want to get into why. When we don't do things in a public square, there tends to be multiple stories, or it becomes very dramatic or very high school-ish, meaning this person said this person, there's gossip or different ideas, and we're just not really understood. And also we're facing some incredible problems within Vineyard. And when I ran, I brought forth some incredible, not accusations, but proof of what had occurred. And I felt like things needed to be brought forth in a public way, so that the citizens could understand, we could learn, we could put policies in place, and we could move forward from them. Some of those that I want to dive into today, understanding my side of things, and many of you guys know this, is how I got here. I remember the first time Mayor Frost of American Fork contacted me with the WIFIA loan application that Eric Ellis and Julie had signed. I got a copy of both of their letters, and it was heartbreaking at the time that it happened. I want to show you those letters. I remember the morning before or the day before meeting with Eric when he sat as the Lake Commissioner, Executive Director of the Lake Commission, and talking about donating land for Wakara Way. When I was given the email, I immediately knew that, especially speaking with Mayor Frost, that he was the board director of the Lake Commission, and his executive director was getting involved in loans that he didn't know about. And I don't need to go into those details tonight. And in contacting the city council members that were involved with Julie's letter, Councilmember Riley or Councilmember Judd, both of them had no idea about the $400 and $900 million loan. There were no recordings of it. There was no public square of the merits of the project or no project. And as I reached out to them, Julie reached out to me, and we probably synced for about 45 minutes in my truck a couple of weeks later. And as I sat in the truck, Julie started to share with me something that was so incoherent and something that was so outlandish to be able to understand, that I wish I would have been able to write it down. And from that, I had already spoken with the council members. I had already spoken with Mayor Frost, and I had already spoken with the city manager, Jake McHarg, and I knew that there was some, what her story was completely just incoherent. But when I met with Jake, he told me about the Wi-Fi loan. And Julie at that time was saying it wasn't real, it wasn't, and I want to show you this application. This is one of the subsections of the loan guarantee where it's actually talking about how it is a loan guarantee in some of the LRS documents. So from that, I learned quite a bit, but also I'd learned that my family's land was put into the was put into the LRS project. Can't tell you how violating that was as a citizen to be like, Eric Ellis and Julie are working together on that and to have those documents. Since joining the city council, the current Lake Authority members, Chris Karn out of Saratoga Springs, and others have come forth to let me know that Eric Ellis's emails from his time of Lake Commission have all been deleted. Everything that has to do with the LRS loan, everything that has to do with the application, and also Julie's has. Now, Julie has been pushed out or stepped down as the board chair of that. And very young in the organization, I approached our city manager about these problems because I knew that these documents existed and that I would be asking the Lake Authority to produce these documents. So I went in and I met with our attorney and with Marty. It was probably a mistake of mine to do this. And looking back at it, I wish that this was done in the public light and learning from that, because I've always been passionate about, okay, let's overcome this problem. Let's not attack Julie. Let's not attack anyone, but let's move forward as a city. And I'd ask yourself, what would you do? Would you guys sit there and be quiet about hidden loans? And you need to remember this $5 million is RDA money. We're going to be talking about our tax problem within our city and about how our citizens are paying double the, or triple the property tax because our sales tax is so low. And it is so low because we have not been successful at attracting businesses here. But if you look at what we've been doing, well, we're throwing money at LRS for a housing project outside the jurisdiction of our city with RDA funds. And we're building a city hall and other things. And so it has a lot of context of why are we doing these types of things? And this discussion isn't happening. None of this happened in the light of day. Meeting with our attorney and with Marty, they were like, well, we need to do an investigation, let's get 3 votes or whatever. And I've pushed very hard behind the scenes to be able to do that. But I haven't been able to secure a 3rd vote to be able to talk about it and say that it's real. Now, quietly around the corners, I've heard that Councilwoman Cifuentes and others say, oh, I agree, Julie, there's been some things that are bad, or, I don't agree with her, she's not an honest person or whatever. But we haven't put any policies in place to be able to protect it. Now, during that time, I had Jake McHarg, our previous city manager, approach me during that time. And when we did to talk about the loan, Jake came forward and let me know about how Julie had multiple times presented resumes that showed that she had degrees at major universities and that she had created fake companies. And he'd looked at it and he felt uncomfortable about approaching the problem. Obviously, I'm a citizen at that point and I was terrified about it. And I said, who are you turning to? That seems very bizarre. But multiple people have come forth with that to me as well. And if you guys remember, about a month ago, the Salt Lake Tribune, when interviewing Julie, even asked her about those companies that were on her LinkedIn, and they don't exist and they're not real. And the degrees and stuff, it's just this bizarre thing. And so it's like, I remember thinking back of, oh, Jake McHarg told me this. He told me not to trust her. He told me of multiple scenarios when he was alone and said, make sure you do things in the light of day. And so getting into office, we met one time with Marty about that with the attorney, but the other mistake I feel like I made was going in and talking about the Qualtrics survey software. Now, I like Qualtrics. It's a great company and everything like that. But when they came to sell us on their $87,000 survey software over 3 years, $35,000, that's not what the price that they sell for a city our size. And I had been presented prior to being elected pictures of all of our staff being at private concerts, which is completely wrong and unethical. And I wanted to look into, is this against the law? Our city manager, Ezra, was there in the pictures. Our mayor is in those pictures. And $87,000 is almost the price of one firefighter, right? And so as we come up to the budget, again, it's not accusatory, but I had tried to put both of these onto the public square and fought Marty to say, hey, can these be on the agenda? In the subsequent weeks, I pushed to try to say, hey, can 2 city council members get these problems onto the agenda? And we've now put in rules that I'm unable to put things onto the agenda to talk about them. But I can go in and talk with Eric all by myself in the basement and Julie, right? And that's just not going to solve any of these problems. And I'm not doing this to create a problem. I'm doing this because our citizens have a right to know why our taxes are going to go up, and why these conversations are not happening in the public square. Now, also during that time, in November, December timeframe, two city employees reached out to me and let me know of a couple of things with the World Trade Center, Utah, and that Julie had been traveling around to Ukraine and to India, and our city manager, Ezra, had been to Europe, and it was just such an outlandish story that I just said, okay, great. But it did kind of fit some of the behind the scenes things that I had heard. And so right when I got elected, a couple of days later, I'd asked for the finances in the books. And again, I feel like I made a mistake because I felt like I'm strong. I feel like I'm smart. I've done a lot of things. Let's go into the basement and talk. And so we had a couple of meetings with Julie and Eric, and I'm asking for the books and the ledger. And we're going back and forth from November and you can go and look in the first meetings in January, February, March. And I'm getting more and more angry because I know what I'm looking for. I know there's $50,000 a year. I know of lavish spending, whether it be with food, whether it be in 4-star, 5-star hotels. And I'm just feeling this pressure. I can't tell you again. And I put yourself in my shoes. Do I really want to accuse somebody in the public square of these things, whether it be Eric or Julie? Do I really want to fight with Marty and Amber and Sarah? I don't, but I know of my sacred calling to conduct the business of the people in public to bring this forward. Now, you know that finally in the April and May city council meeting, we get to a point where Marty finally kind of steps up and says, hey, you're playing games, just get him the documents, and the state auditor is helping us get it. And they're like, oh, you never used the word ledger. You never used the word financial. You didn't request this. And I'm thinking to myself again, strike 3, why am I meeting into the basement? Why am I only meeting with Eric? This isn't the way the city business. I'm strong, I'm smart, I feel like I can do this. But then again, it's posted in the newspaper of Jake Holdaway's never asked for this. And lo and behold, obviously a week later, I get it and I get into the documents. And again, the same employees were right. We were in Europe, we were in India, and they did this contract, and you can go back and look at the city minutes. It's not detailed when it was approved. It's just called economic development. And Julie's off with her friends again. And it really, really bothered me because I'm spending many, many hours meeting with people that have come forward. I've met with Chris Wilson of our city employee that is a whistleblower that came through and helped me understand some of the things that I still want to have answers to, but I'm waiting to have in a public square to kind of get to the bottom of. I've also heard from our previous HR director, Albert, and understood some false accusations against Jake. When Jake McHarg stood up and said, Julie, you don't have the ability to do a WIFIA loan, there was an investigation calling him sexist to try to remove him. And I met with and understood that, and it was like, wow, we are just stabbing each other in the back, and it just creates a lot of problems. Now, many of you as citizens, Crystal Price, if you guys know, I did a YouTube video of Julie saying, doing a city, event with a women's organization and presenting everybody with the ability to get an all expense paid trip to Washington, D.C., airfare, hotels, and all of this type of stuff. And I've taken my time to investigate all of that type of stuff, and it rings true. And so I want to just help you guys understand that throughout this whole process, I've been accused privately of making money on Wakara Way, or something like donating our land. And I've had to go, no, that's okay. Or not asking for the ledger, or different things in private. And I've come to a point and really put some thought into it of, in January, we said, let's do special city council meetings. I want to call a meeting. I want to not accuse, but let's get to the bottom of it. And there was no offer accepted. You have to have a third city council member and Marty to get to the bottom of things. And I also want you to know that when being elected in November, I know the Vineyard Politico reached out just with open arms with Marty to say, could we sit down? Could we go over all of these? And some of these things, maybe they don't need to be, they are quite dirty and salacious. Could we put in practices to stop this? And, for whatever given reason, Marty didn't feel comfortable in reading and talking about them. We waited till December. The holidays, couldn't meet. January, we'll meet in February, the end of February, couldn't meet there. I'm sad to say that I'm at the end of July and I've never met with Marty Cifuentes. Except for the meeting at my home in November to kind of congratulate, let's meet. And then the 2 meetings with the attorney that was forced on those 2 problems. But other than that, for whatever given reason, we're not able to sync, and it's not a good culture. It's not the work in which citizens have to do. And so I want to, in Sarah's drive to say, citizens have an obligation to get educated, to learn of both sides, and to see where people are coming from. I think that also applies to Amber, Rasmussen. I think it also applies to Marty, to allow us to bring those grievances and say, and yes, I do need to have a good tone. And maybe there are people that are very angry, especially with the tax rate increase, because there's there's probably $1 million of just what is this, and with the tax rate increase, I wanted to come forward and help people understand that about 2 months ago in the city council meeting, I said, I let everyone know I will not be meeting alone with Julie and Eric. My integrity doesn't need to be questioned. And I feel strongly that until our trust is rebuilt, and maybe it takes 5 or 6 meetings to kind of get there. And also asking questions, why are all of your emails deleted from the loan process? Why did you step down? And I know also in the coming weeks, there's going to be more things that are coming out that come to do with that. And I myself have some questions. And Eric deserves to be able to defend himself. And so does Julie. And so do I. We all get to. And it's a very uncomfortable, and I would ask citizens to not use words or get angry or anything like that, but to be civil, because this is everybody owns a part of this city. So I just wanted to accept, Sarah, Cameron, and others of everyone has a need to go through and do that. So anyway, I don't know, Jeff, I've been talking a lot, and Jacob, if you guys have anything you'd want to say, or Crystal, but I just wanted to record this because if our city's going to move forward, we have to have real conversations. And the people that are asking these questions, Crystal or others that are in Vineyard Politico, are not mean people. They're not angry, or they're not throwing out accusations. They have some serious questions with documents of like, well, what is and what hasn't happened. So anyone want to add anything?
I just want to say thank you.
I know it's probably, I've been sweating about having this conversation all day because I don't want it to come off as I'm calling people the carpet, or I'm calling Marty out or Amber, or accusing somebody of something, but I do know certain things have happened, and I don't want fighting in our community just like anybody else doesn't.
I would just say that I share your frustration. I've been very disappointed as a citizen in the transparency and the willingness of all the members of the city council and the mayor to talk about these issues publicly. There's always, well, let's talk about it behind doors. You can meet with so-and-so. I don't understand why they can't allow that open discussion. And you have to have three people to bring these things up. It just amazes me that we don't have everybody on the council saying, well, let's just get to the bottom of this and let's solve it. But I share your frustration because I don't feel that you and Sarah have been treated very fairly. I don't think you've been given the training that you deserve as a city councilman. That would very much frustrate me. And then just being given access as a city councilman to the city. Yeah.
And one thing, a few people have been maybe a little bit misunderstanding on Sarah, in that, after many months of holding out, of saying, we need to hold public meetings, Sarah did feel pressure to go in and meet with Marty and Eric and Julie on these one-on-one meetings. And I'm not going to question her integrity at all, because Sarah's like the most incredible person, and I've never run with anyone else. Like, she really does mean and thinks it through. And I loved her call to, hey, citizens need to be educated and to get involved. And I thought, I've been holding back on some things that I probably should tell the citizens that need to get onto the public square, because we have a Mormon culture a little bit here, and it's uncomfortable to talk about. I got to be honest with you guys. What would you do? Like, I don't like being this mean, viewed as this mean, angry person that hates people or throws out accusations. But my passion for good government kind of, overcomes that. And I go, well, that is something that has to be done. But I don't question Sarah's willingness. However, I go back to what I said at the beginning. Nobody elected Jake Holdaway because they thought that I have such integrity that I can blindly go in with nobody watching me into the basement and cut a better deal with Eric and Julie or Marty. And then we come out with this, whatever it be parking or the budget or whatever. That's not how a mature government agency. I was elected, and I feel very strongly about this, that to bring the process out into the light of day and to be able to be respected. That's one of the things that I'm very bothered. I should be respected for being voted on by the people. That my position, if I feel that something needs to be discussed at the light of day, two people should have, been able to put it on. And if I'm a third, there needs to be a discussion. Everyone should be saying, yeah, we can talk about that, but we don't have that. And so I'm very frustrated with, I feel that is just a lack of our constitutional right to petition our government. I'm also very angry about the citizens, you know, when Sarah says, hey, we need to come and ask questions and get your answers, you know, we have a 2-minute citizen. That's not a lot of dialogue to be able to go through it and do that. And then we don't answer those questions. And so many citizens give up and they've turned off their lights and they're not civically engaged. And so I say, okay, well, you as Vineyard Politico, you guys need to get involved, but is that an open door that Eric will talk about why all his emails are deleted out of the Lake Authority, and what was with the 2 loan applications, and why were you telling the families one thing or another, you know, like, why can't we get into that and say, okay, how do we make sure this never happens, you know? Right now, Julie and Eric are over $150 million RDA. And we have to, right now, we're thinking about building a city hall that will not bring tax revenue. Or we were thinking about giving money to LRS to build a housing, you know, that will not bring tax revenue. So we are squandering our opportunity to hold public meetings and to bring some of the brightest minds to say what businesses could we attract or not, on just never meeting, just not engaging. And so, you know, I know that the elections are coming up within 15 to 18 months. And sometimes I just go, you know what, the citizens will tell, but make the decisions in the coming months. But I think that we owe it to do meetings like this. And I hope Sarah's invitation to come in and get educated on the budget and come in and get your questions answered would be that the quorum would come together and answer some questions. And also that our side will not be accusatory, not be angry. I mean, yeah, they are going to be tough questions, but no one's name calling or doing different things. And so anyway, I wanted to speak from my heart, and I'm going to end the recording here. And if anybody has any questions about any of the accusations or any of the documents, that I feel very comfortable, as I've spent hundreds of hours documenting and verifying what Jake McHarg said as a city manager, or what any of these employees have said, or, even what the Lake Authority board members have come to me and talked to me about the deleted emails. If anybody wants to come in and get to the bottom of it, they're welcome to come to my home, or we can do another recorded Zoom meeting to be transparent and get into it. I have, maybe that's a better way to do it, but
I just wanted to jump in and say I appreciate the work you're doing. And the stuff when it relates to LRS and the loan documents, it's not really a political issue. This is an issue of transparency. It's an issue that both sides of the aisle, wherever you are politically, should agree on, that we need to get to the bottom of this. And it's kind of frustrating that we can't get a third vote to investigate what's going on with that, or what happened with that. We can't get a third vote to investigate, city employees and the mayor traveling abroad. So it's frustrating that we just can't have that third vote to look into all this stuff. But I appreciate the work you're doing. I appreciate you looking into this. Nobody likes conflict. Conflict is always uncomfortable, especially in our culture, obviously, right, in Utah. But it's important. It's important. It's important to stand up for what you believe in. It's important to be passionate. You can be passionate and respectful, but asking questions, or it's not a bad thing. It's not something that someone should be offended about. So I appreciate the work you're doing. Keep asking questions, keep on digging, and keep up the great work.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time. Have a good one.
Thank you.